Hello, friend. Around this time last year, I participated in a 30 movies in 30 days challenge. And it was a lot of fun to just intentionally commit to watching a movie a day for 30 days. And I decided to repeat that again this year, and I've just completed it recently. And it again was a lot of fun. I have a lot of movies on my want to watch list, sort of similar to the books that I want to read on my want to read list. And then I also have movies that I would like to rewatch, but never seem to really find the time. So this sort of commitment to watch a movie a day for 30 days is a way to at least get through some of those movies that I'd like to see or rewatch. It was a great experience. Again, the way I chose my movies, I did not pick any sort of particular genre or any sort of era or anything like that. It was very general. It was really mood based. So at the end of the day, on the weekdays, at the end of the workday, I would just sort of think about what was I in the mood to watch it, and I would just sort of scan my movies that I had on various lists and various streaming services and just pick one to watch for that night, really on the day of, the day of. So that's the way I chose the movies, and I wound up with a very sort of eclectic range of movies, and I thought it'd be kind of fun to go through them. Here is the total list, all 30 of them here, and I thought what I would do with this chat is I would just go through each very quickly because there's 30 of them. So just talk a bit about each briefly, and then wrap up at the end with really some just sort of final thoughts. So I kicked off this exercise with watching Thor, Love and Thunder from 2022. This is directed by Taika Waititi, and it stars Chris Hemsworth and Natalie Portman. I don't normally watch this type of superhero movie too much, and so I had kind of wanted to see this when it came out, and so this was my chance to see it, and I'm really glad I did. I love this theme of choosing love. Thor, Love, and Thunder. Choosing love and rejecting anger and hatred, I think is a great sort of theme here in this movie, and I did enjoy this a lot. Next, I decided to watch Mr. and Mrs. Smith from 2005. This stars Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. I had not seen this back in the day, but it was one that I had thought I might enjoy. And so it's about a married couple that are sort of this. Their married life is sort of seems boring, but unbeknownst to each other, they're each harboring a secret. They are each an assassin for a different company. And then when their secret is finally exposed to each other, that's when the chaos really ensues. And so it was a lot of fun. I sort of was a little taken aback with these are professional hired murderers. So it was a little hard to get into it, but then once I just decided to treat it as sort of this sort of fun thing and not take it too seriously, I did have fun with it. There was great chemistry between Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie in this movie, so that part was a lot of fun. Then I watched Too Late for Tears from 1949, starring one of my favorite film noir actresses of all time, Elizabeth Scott. This one, Elizabeth Scott's playing a housewife seemingly happily married to Arthur Kennedy's character, and they come across a bag of money, a suitcase full of money, and then we, the audience, start to learn that the Elizabeth Scott character, Jane, is not going to turn loose of this money very easily, and we find out she's quite a different wife than what we had originally thought. So this was some great film noir, and I did love it. Then I watched The 13th Floor from 1999. This movie I have seen before, so it was a rewatch, but it's been many years since I saw it. The 13th Floor, this movie is about, I don't give away anything that I think would detract from somebody's first time watching this, but it's a different reality, right? When characters, I love this kind of movie, and this is going to be a recurring theme throughout these 30 days, these types of movies where a character realizes that the reality they're in is not quite the true, their perception of the reality they're in is not quite the true picture. And that's the case here from 1999 in sort of a cyber world reality. So very fun to watch that again. Then I decided to watch Personal Shopper from 2016. This starred Kristen Stewart, and that's really the reason why I decided to watch it, because I kept hearing, oh, you know, Kristen Stewart just had a breakout performance with this movie, and I watched her in Spencer last year, and so I really became a fan. I was not that aware of her as an actress before that, so I decided to watch this. She plays a personal shopper for a wealthy person in Europe, and she's also kind of a psychic. Her brother has died. She's trying to contact him, but she has a weird relationship with this woman that she's a personal shopper for, and it's sort of a psychological, supernatural thriller, and I did enjoy it, and especially her performance in it. Then I decided to watch The Thin Man, taking it all the way back to the 1930s, 1934. I've seen this several times previously, but I decided to give it a rewatch because I think the chemistry here between William Powell and Myrna Loy as Nick and Nora Charles, married detective couple, wealthy in the Prohibition era, or actually I guess it's post-Prohibition era. Can't remember. Anyway, they drink a lot. Solving one of their friends comes to them, and her father has gone missing, and they reluctantly, in some ways, get drawn back into this world of solving this mystery. So that was a lot of fun. Then I got talked into watching Hocus Pocus 2, the remake from the original Hocus Pocus, starring Bette Midler, the original cast, Bette Midler, Sarah Jessica Parker, and Kathy Najimy. I was not a big fan of the original one, even, and I'm probably even less of a fan of this one. If I had to choose probably a movie that I really enjoyed the least during this 30 days, this is probably it. I had heard that it was entertaining, and I was kind of going into it looking forward to this sort of lighthearted fun, and parts of it were pretty cute. I did have a few chuckles there, especially with the younger characters there. But overall, it was somewhat cringy to me. I did not love this one, but nevertheless, it was okay. Then I decided to watch Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. This is from 2005 and stars Robert Downey Jr. and Val Kilmer. This is a sort of it's a take on neo-noir. It's a take on the hard-boiled detective genre, you know, and I love film noir. And so this is sort of a comedic sort of take on that genre. You know, it references others like the Raymond Chandler and other sort of hard-boiled detective movies from the past, and it's really funny in some ways. I mean, I need to watch this. This is one I need to watch again. I think I saw this one like way back in the day, but I didn't remember anything about it. Robert Downey Jr. gets drawn into a mystery along with he's actually going to be taught the sort of detectiving by a detective known as Gay Perry, and you know so he's not really a detective, but he gets drawn into this sort of mystery, and it's pretty funny. And I do need to watch this one again. Then I decided to watch Gog from 1954, some science fiction, but you know, really it's looking, after watching it, I think it's really more of techno fiction, what we might today be called like a techno thriller or a cyber thriller, a very early one from 1954. It's got Richard Egan in it, Constance Dowling, and Herbert Marshall is in this too. And so it's kind of cold, got a Cold War vibe though. It is a secret installation of some AI that's being developed by the US government. And what has happened, there's some robots that some of the scientists have started being killed in these weird ways. And someone goes in there to investigate then what's going on. And ultimately it winds up being sort of this really early techno thriller. And I enjoyed this more than I expected. I actually went into this expecting sort of a cheesy 50s sci-fi, and it wound up to be, you know, a little bit more than that to me. Then I decided to watch Dune from 1984, the David Lynch Dune from 1984 that stars Kyle MacLachlan as Paul Atreides. I'd seen this before, a couple of times before, but it had been many years. And after seeing the recent Denis Villeneuve adaptation last year, I really wanted to watch this one again to see what I would think, how I would experience it now. And I think it's aged pretty well, you know, for its time. And it's also very David Lynch in a way. And so I really enjoyed this more than I expected. Then I decided to watch Batman from 1966, starring Adam West and Burt Ward. It's got the major villains of Catwoman, played by Lee Merriweather, Cesar Romero playing Joker, Burgess Meredith playing Penguin, and Frank Gorshin playing the Riddler. This is so campy. It's so over the top campy but it's so much fun. I had seen this many, like maybe when I was a teenager. It was the last time I'd seen this, and I didn't really remember how like campy it was, but it was a lot of fun, and especially that scene where he's trying to get rid of a bomb. Batman's trying to get rid of this bomb. It's so funny. So that was a lot of fun. Then I went to the theater to see Tar from this year, 2022. This is directed by Todd Field and stars Cate Blanchett as a orchestra director, and there's some power dynamics that's going on as far as her leading this orchestra and the musicians and the others that are involved with this orchestra. And so it's really a social commentary on our times. I don't think it really made a political stand. It was ambivalent, so you could kind of read into it however you wanted to see that. I really enjoyed this, and I think Cate Blanchett's performance here was just phenomenal. So that was kind of a treat to see that on the big screen. Then I saw Foreign Correspondent from 1940. This is directed by Alfred Hitchcock and stars Joel McCrea, Lorraine Day, and Herbert Marshall again is in this one as well. Also, he was in Gog. This is about, it's right before the war. It's from, the movie itself came out in 1940, and I think this action takes place in 1939. There is a Dutch diplomat there's an American reporter who's a crime reporter, but his newspaper, played by Joel McCrea, and his newspaper sends him over to Europe to get the real scoop on what's going on in Europe, because there's rumblings of war, right? And so his newspaper doesn't trust political writers to do this. He wants someone that's going to be kind of rough around the edges. So he picks this kind of ace crime reporter to go over there, who then goes to Europe, and there's some mistaken identity. There's lots of spying going on. It's typical Hitchcock in the sense there's this one scene ultimately when they're in London where there's some tension on the tower of Westminster Cathedral. So yeah, this was really pretty cool as far as this look in 1940 and putting yourself sort of in that mindset of right before the war and the dangers that people perceived at that time. Then I decided to watch a Western. I decided to watch 3:10 to Yuma. Now, I've seen this before. I watched the one from 2007, not the original one. This one's the one that's directed by James Mangold and stars Russell Crowe and Christian Bale. And I wondered how I would react, because I saw this when it first came out, so I haven't seen it since, so it's been a really long time. And, it's really tense. I was chewing my fingernails. This is a kind of a mild-mannered rancher in financial trouble and in the Old West, and he is about to lose his ranch, and he takes this. Russell Crowe is this horrible gang leader, outlaw, that gets captured by the law and needs to be taken to the prison train at Yuma, and his gang is obviously going to try to rescue him, and nobody will take this on except for the Christian Bale character. And there's some dynamic here around how to be manly, like this quiet sort of manly strength that Christian Bale personifies. I think his son doesn't see that and really sort of berates him for not standing up to people enough, and sort of idealizes the more violent type of manliness sort of embodied by Russell Crowe. And then the young son, though, through the course of this, does learn a terrible lesson with that, I believe. At least that's what I took away from it. All right. Then I decided to watch another sort of World War II era movie called Till the End of Time. This one I just came across kind of at the last minute, and it was kind of an impulse watch. And this stars Dorothy McGuire and Guy Madison. I decided to watch it because it's also got Robert Mitchum in it, but Robert Mitchum in this movie is a supporting role, not the main lead, male lead. who's played by Guy Madsen. Movie came out, like I said, in 1946, so right at the end of the war, and that's what it's pertaining up to. It is Guy Madsen plays a soldier, and Robert Mitchum, soldiers that are being mustered out as the war's over and returning home to find things different. Their families also find them changed. Dorothy McGuire is a war widow, and she's got her own issues going on. So this was a really interesting to me sort of slice of history here, but it was also entertaining in the sense of a drama. And so it sort of wore both of those hats, and I really enjoyed this more than I expected. I was expecting more of a sort of a film noirish type of vibe, and that's not what it was at all. It was more of a just this sort of quiet post-war drama. And then I decided to watch No Time to Die, my Bond movie of the years. Came out in 2021. It's Daniel Craig's last outing as Bond. Rami Malek here is the villain, and I had meant to see this in the theaters and just never got around to it. And so I got this one watched, and I loved it. It was a great ride. As Bond, he never goes wrong with action, and so it was fun in that standpoint. I actually liked the villain, Rami Malek. I heard some criticism about that, but I liked him as our villain here, and I thought it was a fun outing, and I think Daniel Craig went out on a high note here with this, at least in my opinion. Okay, then I decided to watch The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. This came out this year, 2022, and it stars Nicolas Cage and Pedro Pascal. Pedro Pascal is a very wealthy man who has invited Nicolas Cage, paying him $1 million to come to this party, and Nicolas Cage, ultimately playing himself, ends up doing it, but then they get involved in a lot more than they bargained for with that. This was so funny. Great buddy movie. I think they had a great buddy chemistry with each other, and so that was a lot of fun. Then I decided to watch To Have and Have Not, which is also from 1944. It's also kind of a World War II era movie. I really like that era. This stars Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall. It's in the Caribbean island of Martinique, where they get involved with the French resistance there. It's got Walter Brennan in it as a supporting role. So Hoagie Carmichael's also in this as a really brief, the singer from the 40s, and he's plays a singer in a bar. Lauren Bacall really sizzles here. Of course, the on-screen chemistry between those two was just so great that I can't help but enjoy really any movie they appear in together. Then I decided to watch The Adjustment Bureau, which came out in 2011, stars Matt Damon and Emily Blunt. This is some sci-fi, again, where a person, the Matt Damon character is a politician. He meets this woman played by Emily Blunt very briefly. He loses the election. He finds out, though, that there is this organization known as the Adjustment Bureau, which are these people who go around and make sure that people live their life according to the plan. And so if you don't, you can't go off the plan. And so it turns out that the Emily Blunt character is not supposed to meet up with Matt Damon character. But of course, they've kind of got this instant connection. So our task here is to determine, are they going to be able to overcome the plan or not? And I won't spoil it for you. All right. Then I decided to watch The Ballad of Buster Scruggs from 2018, directed by Ethan and Joel Coen. I had been meaning to watch this for quite a while. I'm kind of hit and miss with the Coen brothers movies. I was in the mood to see one, so I decided to give this one a watch. What it is a series of short stories. So it's got a great ensemble cast, and I won't go into that too much, but so it's got these little standalone stories. There's like 4 or 5 of them. And some of them are comedies, some of them are dramas, and some of them are comedies and dramas together. So I really enjoyed it more than I expected. I wasn't really sure what to expect with it. I didn't really even know going into it that it was these little short stories, but nevertheless, I had a good time with it. Then I decided to watch Blowout from 1981, a thriller directed by Brian De Palma and stars John Travolta and Nancy Allen. John Lithgow's also in this. I had this on my watch list for a really long time because I kept hearing it was really highly thought of. I think it's in the Criterion Collection now, and I have never seen it, so I decided to give it a watch. John Travolta plays a sound engineer for a movie, like a low-budget horror movie, and he's out recording sounds for that one night whenever there's an accident with a high-ranking political official, and the escort that's with him is the Nancy Allen character, so they get pulled into this huge mystery. There's also another element going on that I won't give away of danger to them. And so, yeah, this one was a thriller. So, yeah, it was a nail biter in places too, but I enjoyed it a lot as well. Then I watched The Matrix from 1999 by the Wachowski siblings, starring Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss, Lawrence Fishburne. You know, I've seen this before years and years ago. I haven't seen it in forever. This is another one of those movies, you know, where reality's not quite what our main character thought it was. Once he swallows that red pill and he sees that he's inside a matrix, and then the fight then against that, getting reabsorbed back into that matrix, is really what the theme of this is. It's just a great adventure. You know, there's so much there. This has impacted popular culture so much. It was really a treat to get it rewatched. Then I watched RRR, which is an Indian movie from 2022. RRR stands for Rise, Roar, and Revolt. The director is S.S. Rajamouli. And this one, I had heard a lot of good things about. It's really long. It's like 3 hours long. But it is a fast-paced, it's sort of like almost an Indian Bond. The stunts in it are amazing. It takes place in a fictionalized like 1920s India during the British colonial occupation there. And there is a rise, revolt, right? There is a revolt. And so that's the sort of adventure that we go on. There is another case here of people not quite being who they seem. So that was an added sort of aspect to the thriller aspect. And so this was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. It was 3 hours well spent. Then I decided to watch The Razor's Edge from 1946. This is directed by Edmund Golding, starring Tyrone Power, Gene Tierney. Herbert Marshall again is in this one too, and Ann Baxter. This is based on the book by W. Somerset Maugham, which I have chatted here on my channel, so I'll link to that chat down in the details below if you're interested in checking that out. This is all about a man who comes back from World War I and to his fiancée, who's expecting him to, they're going to get married, and then he's going to go into business and just become prosperous and have this prosperous, sort of stable, follow the usual path that people follow. But he doesn't want to do that. You know, he wants to have a life that has meaning to it. That life to him would not have meaning. And so he wants to go and explore and really find his meaning. And she doesn't want to go along with him on that ride. But their lives intertwine over the course of several years. And we see them as far as the fiancé marrying someone else, and then some of their childhood friends, how life takes people in different directions, and ultimately our main character here are really sort of trying to steer his own course through what everybody else expects he should be doing. So that was really good. Then I actually belong to a film club that meets once a month, and we watch a movie together and then have a discussion afterwards. Our movie for this month was Gaslight from 1944, directed by George Cukor, starring Charles Boyer and Ingrid Bergman. Joseph Cotton is also in that. And Gaslight, this is where the term gaslight, that modern term meaning you're getting gaslighted, or you're trying to gaslight me, that comes from this movie. And so I had seen this many years ago, but it was really cool to watch this with a group and then have a discussion about it afterwards. Ingrid Bergman here, her aunt is murdered, and then she goes off her was an opera singer, her aunt was an opera singer, she goes off to study voice as well, but then ultimately she falls head over heels in love with Charles Boyer character. Once they're married though, their life doesn't turn out like she had hoped. She ultimately, I won't give it away, but it's a thriller. It's a psychological thriller that involves gaslighting, obviously. So yeah, that was fun. Then I decided to watch Highlander from 1986. Back in 1986, when this movie came out, my friends and I thought this movie was it. We loved this movie. We rented it from Blockbuster. We watched it on VHS multiple times. One of my friends had it, so we watched it multiple times. I don't know what the attraction was, but I was like wondering, how will I feel about this movie today? Knowing that back in the 80s, it was considered the thing among my friends. And, it was still enjoyable. It's not aged terribly well, though, really. But still, I enjoyed it still. The Christopher Lambert character, Sean Connery's in this as well. Christopher Lambert character plays an immortal guy who is in this sort of eternal battle with other immortal guys. Christopher Lambert is from Scotland, so it's got that Highlander, right? So it starts out way back in like the 1400s with him, and then we're in modern like 1980s there at the end, and throughout most of the course of the movie. And so we do get the flashbacks of his earlier life to know the backstory. But nevertheless, he's in this sort of duel with another one. Only one can be left standing. I don't know why there's can only be one. I think I didn't catch that, but nevertheless, it still was good, and it was definitely kind of nostalgic for me to watch it again, so that was fun too. Then I decided to watch The Personal History of David Copperfield from 2019. This has Dev Patel in it, Hugh Laurie, and Tilda Swinton. This is a kind of a loose, or let's not say loose adaptation, let's just say a creative adaptation of the David Copperfield story by Charles Dickens. It was so fun, though. I really enjoyed this. It's one of my favorites, I think, from the whole 30 movies, 30 days challenge this time. Tilda Swinton was so funny. It definitely played as more of a comedy, and it was just the period settings and period costumes, as well as just the funny dialogue. And the characters, of course, they're Charles Dickens characters, so of course they're lively and fun, and just it was a lot of fun. I switched gears though after that and watched Solaris from 1972, the Andrei Tarkovsky version of it, and this was way more sort of cerebral than the David Copperfield, Personal History of David Copperfield. It is about a planet. There's a space station on a planet, and there is some issues going on there that people are having around this planet. It's an ocean planet, and so someone is sent there. But what it is another one of these where consciousness, you have to question your own consciousness and what is a person? When are they alive? When are they just a copy of someone else? Or when are they become their own version of themselves? I don't know. There's a lot here. It moves really slow. It's really beautifully shot, for 1972, I think. It's really slow, though, so it's very philosophical, and it's one of those that you just, I just sat back and just absorbed it, and probably don't understand all of it, but nevertheless, I did enjoy it, and I've been meaning to watch this forever, and I'm really glad finally I got it watched. Then I decided to watch Open Your Eyes from 1997. I believe this was a movie from Spain. It stars Eduardo Noriega and Penelope Cruz. It was remade as an American movie known as Vanilla Sky, and it had Tom Cruise and Penelope Cruz in it. And this one, the original though, is called Open Your Eyes. This is another one where reality is not quite what we thought. The main character is in this sort of reality that then he ultimately becomes to question. He is a very handsome young man, and kind of known for that, and then is disfigured horribly, but then has to start questioning his sanity even as far as what's real and what's not real. And then ultimately that mystery gets resolved, and I won't give that away. But anyway, it was really good. I had seen Vanilla Sky years ago when it first came out. I saw it in the theaters. I haven't seen it since. I did not love it. But this one I really did enjoy. Then my last movie, I decided to wrap up this challenge by watching Call Me By Your Name from 2017, starring Timothée Chalamet and Armie Hammer. It's another one I had meant to watch for a really long time and just never had gotten to. And It's so beautiful, though. It was, I'm not sure why I had never really watched it, but it's about a young man, Timothy Chalamet. He gets into a relationship with his father's a professor. They're in Italy. They're Americans, but they're in Italy doing, his father's a professor doing some research there, and he has these graduate students that come every year. And one year, the graduate student is Armie Hammer, and he, who is a little, Timothy Chalamet is a teenager. Armie Hammer's, I guess, in his early 20s. They develop a relationship with each other that becomes kind of complex, but it's really kind of heartbreaking at the end, but also beautiful. And I think this one, it's the last movie I watched, but it might be my favorite that I watched. So that's all 30 movies that I watched in my 30-day challenge. And, I probably will do this again next year because I feel like it's just a really good way to commit to watching those things that I've been meaning to watch and rewatch. And it doesn't really take that much effort to watch a movie a day if you just plan for it. And so, it's mostly like a couple of hours a night. And so I can make that work. And to me, it's just really well worth it. As you could tell, I kind of watched stuff from many decades and all kinds of genres, and that's the way I like to read as well. So anyway, I will leave the chat there. Like I said, we'll do this again next year, and I will have book chats coming up as usual in the near future, so stay tuned for that. Until next time, take care.